Okay, let's jump into the deep dive. Today, we're taking a snapshot of a single day, June 2025. We'll pull apart the information you've shared with us.
Yeah, and figure out what really stands out, what connects, and importantly, why it matters to you,
Exactly. Our goal here is to sift through these reports, find those crucial nuggets of knowledge.
and help you see the bigger patterns,
Yeah,
the underlying significance in the day's events that might not be obvious right away.
right. Think of this as getting quickly well informed, but really focusing on the why and the so what. Maybe even find some surprising facts along the way. Let's get started.
Okay.
So on the global stage, there were some pretty significant movements. The G7 summit just wrapped up in
All
Japan.
right.
And a major headline was this pledge, wasn't it? $70 billion over 5 years, specifically aimed at climate change and helping developing nations with green energy transitions.
hmm
$70 billion. I mean, that sounds like a massive number. How significant is that commitment, really? What does it signal?
Well, what's interesting here isn't just the headline number, though, yeah, $70 billion is substantial.
Uh-huh.
It's the targeted nature, putting resources directly towards green energy in developing nations
There.
that acknowledges that climate action, well, it needs to be globally equitable, right? And linked to economic growth.
Okay. So it's strategic.
It signals a reinforced kind of collective commitment from these major economies. They're recognizing that climate solutions aren't just about their own backyards, but about supporting uh, a global shift.
But the challenge is making it actually happen on the ground.
Exactly. The delivery mechanism, ensuring the funds really do accelerate actual transitions. That's always the hard part.
Okay. Shifting gears a bit to tensions. We saw North Korea conduct a series of missile tests.
hmm Predictable reaction, too.
Yeah. Condemnation from the UN Security Council, calls for renewed diplomatic talks. We've seen this cycle before, haven't we? What does this pattern tell us about, the current state of play there?
It really raises an important question about leverage and signaling, I think.
Yeah.
Missile tests.
Hmm.
They're often used by North Korea to, well, get attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe test international resolve, try to create leverage for future negotiations. And the standard response condemnation calls for dialogue. It highlights this difficult tightrope the world walks.
Trying to deter but keep talking.
Yeah, deter provocative behavior while keeping channels open to prevent escalation or find some kind of diplomatic path. It's a persistent challenge, no easy answers.
Meanwhile, India's prime minister announced a new initiative focusing on strengthening ties with South Asian neighbors. Boosting trade and security were the stated goals.
Right?
How does this regional focus fit into the broader geopolitical picture?
This really signals India's strategic priority on its immediate neighborhood. In such a complex global environment, securing and stabilizing your own region is, well, it's crucial.
Kind of shoring up the home base.
Exactly. By strengthening trade and security ties, India isn't just looking outward, it's consolidating its position closer to home, potentially countering other influences in the region, creating a more stable environment for its own growth and security.
Okay. And then there's this pervasive modern threat, cyber warfare. The US and EU reaffirmed their commitment to countering cyber threats. This came after a wave of ransomware attacks hit critical infrastructure.
A really concerning trend.
Why is this transatlantic cooperation so vital against these kinds of attacks?
Well, look, these attacks on critical infrastructure, pipelines, hospitals, whatever, they show just how vulnerable our interconnected societies are.
Yeah.
And these threats, they don't respect borders. So attributing them, responding effectively, that takes a high degree of international cooperation. This commitment means, hopefully, aligning strategies, sharing real-time intelligence,
Working together on defense?
potentially coordinating defensive measures, yes. It's essential because, a successful attack in one country can have ripple effects everywhere.
Right. And amidst all these challenges, maybe some glimmers of hope. Peace talks between Israel and Palestinian representatives resumed in Cairo.
Yes, that was reported, with international mediators apparently optimistic.
What does the mere resumption of talks signify in such a, let's face it, historically complex situation? And why is mediator optimism even noteworthy?
Well, the resumption itself, after periods where things stall, it indicates a persistent, maybe fragile, but still present willingness to engage, despite all the difficulties.
And the optimism.
Mediator optimism is noteworthy because these folks are deeply involved, they know the hurdles. So if they express some optimism, it suggests there might be some specific, maybe incremental movement happening,
Yeah.
or perhaps a confluence of factors creating a slightly better environment for discussion.
Tentative hope, maybe?
Very tentative, yes. And of course, we're just observing this development as reported, not speculating beyond the facts we have.
Understood. Okay, let's shift focus now to the economy and business world. See what the pulse was like on June 2nd. We saw global stock markets rally,
Positive signs there.
reportedly driven by good economic data from both the US and China, and maybe signals of easing trade tensions. What's the connection there, and what could this mean for, someone just watching the markets?
Well, positive economic data from the world's two biggest economies.
Hmm.
That acts like rocket fuel for market confidence, doesn't it?
Right.
When the engines of global growth seem to be firing, investors get more optimistic. Then you add the prospect of easing trade tensions, fewer tariffs, less uncertainty, and you remove friction points for global businesses.
So for the average person watching their investments.
For you watching the markets, this usually signals a period where growth expectations are rising, and that often translates to upward pressure on stock prices, reflecting anticipated higher profits and stability.
Got it. Now, on the commodity front, oil prices stabilized. This happened after OPEC Plus agreed to maintain their current production levels, even with fluctuating demand forecasts.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision.
What does that decision tell us about their view of the global energy market right now?
OPEC Plus's decision to just hold steady suggests a cautious outlook. They're balancing the current demand against those uncertain forecasts you mentioned.
So not confident enough to pump more, not worried enough to cut back.
Pretty much. They're not seeing strong enough signals to increase production, which could lower prices, but they're also not seeing a demand collapse that would require cuts. It tells us they think the market is sort of roughly in balance for now.
But keeping an eye on things.
Oh, absolutely. They remain wary of factors influencing future demand, global economic health, geopolitics, all that.
Okay, let's zoom in on innovation. India's startup ecosystem hit a pretty major milestone, over 100 unicorns.
Yeah, that's huge. Private companies valued over $1 billion.
And the report highlighted growth driven by fintech, health tech, and AI, reaching over 100 unicorns. That's a big deal for any country. What does the focus on these sectors say about where innovation is really thriving in India?
Well, hitting 100-plus unicorns, it signifies a really robust, dynamic tech ecosystem. It means there's significant investment capital available, lots of entrepreneurial talent, and a market that can actually support these large tech ventures.
And why those specific sectors? Fintech, health tech, AI?
Well, the concentration there points to where the most disruptive innovation seems to be happening. Fintech addresses this massive opportunity in digital payments, financial inclusion, health tech obviously booming post-pandemic, and AI is seen as critical for the future across almost all sectors.
So it shows where the money and talent are flowing.
It tells us these areas are attracting the most talent and funding right now. Yeah, positioning India as a major player in these specific next-gen technologies.
Interesting. Looking at central banks now, the European Central Bank announced a cautious approach to interest rate adjustments.
Walking a tightrope there.
Their goals support economic recovery while managing inflation. What does this cautious approach really signal about the economic environment they see?
A cautious approach basically means they're seeing conflicting signals in the economy. On one hand, signs of recovery they want to nurture, suggesting rates shouldn't go too high too fast.
Right.
But on the other hand, persistent inflationary pressures they need to control, which suggests rates can't stay too low.
So they're stuck in the middle.
They're essentially trying to navigate this really delicate path, avoiding aggressive moves that could either, stifle growth or let inflation spiral. It signals uncertainty, really, a preference for a measured wait-and-see strategy.
Okay. And finally, on the economic front, South Africa launched a national infrastructure development plan. Focus on boosting job creation and economic growth.
Classic stimulus tool.
Yeah, large-scale infrastructure projects. How broadly can a plan like that impact a national economy?
Oh, it can have really widespread effects. Directly it creates jobs in construction-related industries.
Sure.
But then there are the multiplier effects. Improved transport networks can reduce business costs. More reliable power grids support industry. Better connectivity boosts productivity overall.
So it's foundational.
Exactly. It aims to create a more efficient foundation for the entire economy, potentially attracting more investment, enabling longer-term growth, though, of course, execution and funding are always the critical challenges.
Always the catch. Okay, let's push some boundaries now and dive into technology. On the consumer tech side, Apple unveiled the Vision Pro 2.
Ah, yes. The sequel.
Report mentions improved battery life, enhanced AR capabilities, claiming it's setting new standards in immersive tech. Beyond just better, what do enhanced AR capabilities actually unlock for users? Like, what does that mean for the experience?
Right. Enhanced AR capabilities, it really means a much more seamless, more convincing overlay of digital stuff onto your physical world.
So less clunky.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
For you, that could mean virtual objects interacting more realistically with your room, maybe apps that blend work and digital info more fluidly into your surroundings, or even entertainment that feels truly integrated, not just kind of slapped on top.
So a step closer to AR feeling. Natural.
That's the goal. Yeah, a natural extension of reality rather than the separate layer you're looking through.
Okay. Now, diving into some really cutting-edge research, Google announced breakthroughs in quantum computing. Specifically, achieving stable qubit coherence for longer durations.
This is fascinating stuff.
The report suggests this accelerates the path to practical quantum applications. Now, stable qubit coherence sounds incredibly technical. What does that actually mean in practical terms for the future of computing?
Okay, yeah, let's break that down. So imagine a qubit is like this tiny, incredibly shaky particle holding information. Coherence is its ability to maintain that delicate quantum state needed for calculations.
And it's fragile.
Extremely fragile, easily lost due to any tiny disturbance like environmental noise, vibrations, anything. Think of a sneeze potentially wrecking the calculation.
Wow.
So achieving stable coherence for longer durations. That means a quantum computer can hold on to that vital quantum information longer. It can perform more complex calculations before errors inevitably creep in. It's a critical, really difficult step towards building powerful, genuinely useful, fault-tolerant quantum computers. The kind that could maybe tackle problems that are just impossible for today's supercomputers. Designing new materials, discovering drugs, maybe cracking certain types of encryption.
Game-changing potential then.
Absolutely. But still a long road.
Right. Now, on a more immediate digital front, Meta introduced AI-driven tools to fight misinformation on its platforms.
Using AI to fight problematic content.
Exactly, employing advanced algorithms to detect and flag false content in real time. But using AI to fight misinformation, especially AI-generated stuff, what are the inherent challenges there? It feels like an arms race.
Oh, it absolutely is. The challenge is immense because misinformation is constantly evolving, right? And it's often designed specifically to be deceptive, to slip through nets.
So the AI has to be really smart.
Incredibly sophisticated. It has to understand nuance, context, satire, rapidly changing narratives across huge amounts of content in many languages. It's this constant battle where the creators of misinformation adapt their tactics, and the AI has to keep learning and adapting just as fast.
And avoid mistakes.
Yeah, while also avoiding false positives, accidentally censoring legitimate content. It's a really complex technical and societal puzzle.
Okay. Let's look up to space. India's ISRO is preparing for its first lunar rover mission, Target. The moon's south pole, searching for water ice deposits.
A very exciting mission.
Why the moon's south pole specifically? And why is finding water ice there such a significant goal for space exploration right now?
So Moon's south pole has these areas, deep inside some craters, that are permanently shadowed from the sun. They're incredibly cold.
Like deep freeze cold.
Exactly. Which makes them potential reservoirs for ancient water ice that might have built up over billions of years. Finding substantial amounts of water ice there, well, that would be a game changer.
Why? What can you do with it?
You could potentially process it into drinking water for astronauts, oxygen for life support systems, maybe even rocket fuel components for future missions deeper into space.
That's like finding an oasis in the desert.
Kind of, yeah. It's seen as a key resource for establishing a sustained human presence on the moon, maybe even enabling future lunar industry.
Wow. Okay, back down to Earth, and related to our earlier chat on cyber threats, cybersecurity experts warning of a new phishing campaign targeting financial institutions globally, urging enhanced vigilance.
Yeah, these warnings pop up constantly, unfortunately.
What's the single most important takeaway for you listening right now from that kind of warning?
Look, the crucial takeaway is this. While the institutions are the targets, these campaigns almost always rely on tricking individuals. You.
Me.
So it comes down to us. Your personal vigilance is a really critical layer of defense. Be extremely cautious with unexpected emails, texts, calls asking for financial or personal info, even if they look legit. Double-check everything. Verify requests through official channels you initiate. Don't click suspicious links. Just assume sophisticated attacks are happening all the time. Basic digital hygiene, strong passwords, two-factor authentication. Just thinking critically about unsolicited requests, it's essential for everyone.
Good reminder. Okay, let's broaden our view now across the spectrum, looking at sports, culture, environment, and some inspiring human stories from this particular day, June 2nd.
Right, a bit of everything else.
In sports, we saw some major victories. Manchester City winning their first Champions League title, the Denver Nuggets their first NBA Finals. Huge moment.
Absolutely. First-time wins are always special.
India announced its cricket squad for the World Cup mix of experience and newcomers. Hangzhou showed progress on Asian Games prep. And a big one, tennis legend Serena Williams announced her retirement.
Wow, end of an era there.
What do these different moments capture about, I don't know, the enduring appeal of sports?
Well, they capture that whole cycle, don't they? The culmination of seasons and peak performance, those first-time triumphs you mentioned, then the anticipation of huge international events like the World Cup or Asian Games. You see the blend of established stars and rising talent.
And the farewells.
And the really moving farewells of icons like Serena, who've defined entire eras. It reflects those narratives of effort, victory, defeat, the passage of time. It's what makes sports so compelling for so many people.
Yeah. Okay, moving to culture. The Cannes Film Festival awarded its top prize, the Palme d'Or, to a sci-fi drama exploring climate change.
Interesting choice. Art tackling big issues.
K-pop sensation BLACKPINK released a highly anticipated album, Galactic Dreams, topping global charts. Hollywood celebrated 100 years of the Academy Awards.
The century of Oscars, wow.
Paris Fashion Week highlighted sustainable materials and inclusive designs. And a Netflix interactive documentary, Voices Unheard, got critical acclaim for innovative storytelling.
Lots going on there.
What broader themes or trends do you maybe see running through these cultural highlights?
Well, you definitely see culture grappling with major global issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Climate change in film, sustainability in fashion, that seems prominent.
Uh-huh.
You also see the continued, just massive global reach of genres like K-pop, the importance of celebrating history and tradition like the Oscar centenary, and this drive for innovation and how stories are told, like that interactive doc and who they include, like the inclusive designs in Paris.
So culture reflecting the wider world.
Yeah, reflecting and maybe shaping the conversations happening in the wider world. It often does.
Okay. Turning now to the planet in science. A stark UN report warned global carbon emissions must peak by 2026 to avoid catastrophic climate impacts, urging immediate action.
Really sobering warning. That deadline is soon.
Yeah. But on a slightly brighter note, scientists found a rare coral species thriving in the Great Barrier Reef, offering a tiny glimmer of hope for restoration.
A small positive sign amidst the larger concerns.
NASA's Artemis III mission completed final simulations for its planned 2026 moon landing. So progress towards that goal.
Keeping that timeline on track.
But then, reality bites. Severe flooding hit Southeast Asia, displacing thousands, prompting international aid.
Yeah, the immediate impacts of climate change right there.
And Germany announced plans to accelerate its phase out of coal power, aiming for 2035.
A significant move from a major economy.
Looking at this whole snapshot, the UN warning, the coral, Artemis, the floods, Germany's plan, what range of environmental and scientific realities does this reveal?
It really captures the complex state of things, doesn't it? You have this extreme urgency, these dire warnings from the UN report, highlighting the scale of the climate crisis.
Yeah. Right next to it.
Right next to these small moments of ecological resilience, like the coral discovery, and determined national action, like Germany's accelerated coal phase-out. You've got ambitious long-term plans like Artemis, alongside the immediate devastating impacts of climate-related disasters like the flooding.
So it's a real mix.
It's a mix of warning, hope, action, and unfortunately ongoing crisis, all happening at the same time.
Okay. Finally, let's wrap up with some inspiring human stories from around the world on this day. We heard about a community waste-to-energy project in Kerala, India.
Grassroots innovation. Love it.
Volunteers organizing tree planting campaigns in Canada. A young inventor from Kenya developing an affordable water filtration system.
Fantastic. Local solutions.
The global mental health awareness campaign Mind Matters gaining traction. And Tokyo hosting a cultural festival celebrating diversity and international friendship.
Good, positive notes to end on.
What common thread connects these seemingly small local initiatives to the big global picture we've been discussing all this time?
I think these stories really highlight the power and, frankly, the importance of local action, local innovation, community engagement.
Oh, so.
Well, while we're discussing global pledges from the G7 or breakthroughs in quantum computing, these grassroots efforts in sustainability, health, social connection, they show that individuals and communities are also actively tackling significant challenges. They're building positive change from the ground up.
So it's not all top down.
Not at all. They offer these powerful examples of agency, of ingenuity, right in the face of these huge global issues.
So, taking all these pieces from just this one day, June 2nd, the global agreements, political tensions, economic shifts, tech breakthroughs and challenges, cultural moments, environmental warnings and hopes, these local actions, it really paints a complex picture, doesn't it?
It really does. And if you try to connect it to the bigger picture, I mean, even looking at just one day's news shows, the world isn't moving on just one track.
Yeah.
It's messy.
Yeah.
It's addressing crises, celebrating achievements, pushing boundaries in science and tech, confronting challenges, all simultaneously. From the highest levels of international summits right down to local community projects. Every single one of these threads is part of that larger tapestry.
Which leads us, I guess, to a final thought for you, listening to this based on everything we've just covered. Looking at this single day's news, how do these seemingly separate threads weave together?
Does the climate pledge influence the economy? Does tech influence diplomacy? How does that local action in Kerala connect to global policy?
Right. What does this interconnected web of events suggest about the complex reality of our global present? And, maybe more importantly, what might that mean for the path ahead?
Something to keep contemplating as you go about your day.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, stay curious about how all these pieces fit together.